We're back now live with Senator Elizabeth Warren, who has just announced the formation of an exploratory committee to run for president. Senator, thank you again for being here.
It's good to be here.
In June 2016, when it was reported that you were being considered as a potential running mate for Hillary Clinton, I asked you in an interview what I thought was the most important question for a potential VP. I asked you if you believed you were ready to be president right then, right now. If it came to that, and you looked me right in the eye and you said one word answer, you said yes, without equivocation. It made me wonder, thinking back on that today, if you've been planning on running yourself ever since, or if you knew then that actually you could have run in 2016, that maybe you were ready for this all along.
Yeah, it's not a question of are you ready? It's a question of what the country needs. At that moment, we were already down to the wire. We knew who our candidates were, and we were in the fight. And now we're in a very different place. We've lived through 2 years of Donald Trump as president, and more to the point, we have lived through 2 years of one scammer and grifter after another, running federal agencies, running our federal government. And we've lived through 2 more years of giant tax giveaways to the billionaires, to big corporations, and a harder and harder squeeze on working families. Student loan debt is up another $100 billion since over just the last year. It's like the thing is tilted badly in favor of the rich and the powerful and against everyone else. And the tilt is getting steeper and steeper, and that's why we have to be in this fight.
I highlighted, when I brought you on before the break, highlighted the consistency of your message and how you were an academic expert in that phenomenon before you were ever a political figure. You were a policy person in Washington on that issue before you were ever an elected official campaigning on those issues.
Long before. Long before.
This has been your life of the system. And yet, when people go to the ballot box, both for the Democratic primary in 2020 and for the general election in 2020, there will be one very big thing different that was not true when you were doing all that previous work, which is Donald Trump.
Yes.
And is Donald Trump a qualitatively different thing that either changes your analysis or that has made you feel more urgent about these issues that you've worked on? Is he just a continuation of what all the other Republicans have been
Donald Trump is an accelerant.
Okay.
He takes a problem that has been growing and growing and growing, and he just sets it off and makes it worse than ever.
Because of corruption?
Yes.
Okay.
Because of corruption. I mean, just look at it that way. That's what this is about. He takes this government, and he's pretty damned open about it, and says this government works for the rich. What was the first order of business? What did it take? So first they tried to take away health care from tens of millions of Americans, came within one vote of doing that. In fact, when it passed the House, what did they all do? They all went over and celebrated, high-fived over taking away health care.
Any Republican president would have done that.
Pulled them together, and then what was the next thing to do? And the big one that they held every single Republican together for, so it's Republicans, was give a tax break to the rich. Give $1.5 trillion giveaway to billionaires and giant corporations. And notice what Republicans have said. Well, as long as he can keep delivering on those tax breaks, yeah, he kind of says some things that make us all a little uncomfortable, and he's a little louder and don't like the tweet thing, and the whole foreign policy seems to be a disaster, but hey, the rich folks got $1.5 trillion. And who's supposed to pay for that? People who get Social Security, our students who have to pay the interest rate on student loans and can't refinance those loans. Every part of this is angled over and over to pay off the big donors, make sure they get their part, and leave everybody else behind. That's what this is about.
When I look at those things, though, those specific things you just mentioned, repealing health care, the tax cuts, I would also include in there the choice of Neil Gorsuch and Brett Kavanaugh for the Supreme Court. Those are all things I could imagine a President Romney doing, or a President Paul Ryan, or a President Mitch McConnell, or a President...
In fact, I think didn't soon-to-be Senator Romney just say that in an op-ed today? He said, don't like how he behaves, but look at all those great things he's done. It's right up there in the first paragraph.
And so,
love those taxes, love those judges.
But for a lot of Americans, both I think conservative Americans and liberal Americans, and people who don't like to align themselves with politics at all but are worried right now, Donald Trump is not just the next Republican president. He is a special kind of crisis. He's a special kind of departure from even what had been Republican politics in the past. Do you see that, or do you see him as just the next Republican?
I see him as what happens when corruption invades a system, that it gets a little bit corrupt and it gets a little more corrupt and it gets a little more corrupt and then it gets bigger and they get bolder and bolder. And then you end up with someone like Donald Trump, somebody who just isn't even coy about it.
Okay.
Someone whose cabinet appointees don't know sic 'em from come here about whatever is the subject area they're supposed to be in charge of. Cabinet officials that get caught for trading in stocks in the areas that they are supposed to oversee. Cabinet officials that don't even pay their taxes, and no shame, just keep it up, because now they're wallowing in the corruption. But the problem is a long systemic problem. You know, you described this as my life's work, but it truly is my whole life's work. I'm a kid who had a dream when I was a little tiny girl. I wanted to be a public school teacher. All three of my older brothers went off, they joined the military. I just wanted to teach school, but that meant I needed a college diploma. And by the time I graduated from school, no chance for something like that. My folks didn't have the money for that. And so I ended up, it's a bumpy path. I dropped out of school at 19, I got married, I found a commuter college, $50 a semester. And I got a 4-year diploma that I could go become a public school teacher on a price that I could pay for on a part-time waitressing job. That's how you build a middle class. That catapulted me into the middle class. I am the daughter of a man who ended up as a janitor, and I got a chance to be a public school teacher, a college professor, and ultimately a senator, because America made an investment in a kid like me. My life's work is for every kid to have an opportunity, every kid. Right now, those opportunities are shrinking, and they're shrinking even harder for people of color, people who have just always caught the wrong end of the stick in this country. And this is a democracy. There's more of us than there is of them. We get organized, we put it together, we can make real change. And for me, that's what this is all about. People told me we couldn't build a consumer agency. We got organized and we made it happen. People told me I couldn't beat a popular Republican incumbent, but we got organized and we made it happen. Shoot, people told me you couldn't get any accountability after Wells Fargo ended up cheating millions of their own customers. But I said in an open hearing that I thought the CEO of Wells Fargo ought to lose his job. And a few weeks later, that's exactly what happened. You get into these fights, and that's how you win them.
Senator Elizabeth Warren is our guest. Stay right there. We'll be right back with her. She has just announced the exploratory committee for her presidential bid. Stay with us.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.